Hello, everybody.
Good morning, everybody.
Hopefully you had a great new year. There it is. Okay.
Let's see
All
if
right,
YouTube
then.
lasts.
Good morning, Tim, M1A1 Rooster, Kemper, Jacob C. Hernandez,
Jacob C., everybody.
JC.
JC. Kim, good morning from the Philippines.
You want to hear that spot real quick? I watched it, Kemper. Wow, what a game. Talk about hell breaking loose in Georgia.
My goodness, that got very 4th and 13.
Yeah, I thought it was over. I was like, oh, God. But they pulled it out. Now they've got Ohio State. Yay. That's going to be a tough one, too. Amen. Good morning, Rooster. Now, they're going to have the Attorney General from Louisiana coming up on Fox News.
Okay.
She wants the game postponed another day. I don't think that's going to happen.
That's not good for whoever wins that game.
It's not good for anybody, really. I mean, I get it, but just think about it.
Secure that Superdome.
Well, they
with
say
National
that
Guardsmen.
the Superdome is the most secure place in New Orleans right now.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they said that about Bourbon Street, too.
Well, this time they start with a lot of knowledge that they didn't have before.
Well, I just don't understand why they didn't take a page out of the New York City playbook and put out big trucks to block those intersections.
Yeah.
Because what he did is went around the police car, went around that little sawhorse barricades that they had up, and went right onto Bourbon Street. And from there, it was open season, man.
Awful.
Michael Parker. That's right. So it's the last day of Hanukkah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Happy Hanukkah, everybody. M1A1, Tim, Kemper, Rooster. Welcome in. 11 of you here so far. Good to see you. Welcome. He smells.
Johnson can only afford to lose 2 Republicans to get the votes needed to become Speaker. Kentucky's Thomas Massey has indicated he's still in love. The House will vote for a...
Now, are we going to be able to go back and forth to Charity today? Didn't he say he had that fixed for him?
He did say that. Does EJ know that? I don't know.
Right, he's checking.
Okay.
Hello? Hello?
Welcome into this beautiful day, Thursday, January 2nd, 2025. 18 days until Inauguration Day, 38 days until Super Bowl 59. And while we had hoped to begin our first broadcast of the new year with joy and anticipation of all the wonderful things this new year will bring, Charity McCurdy, as it turns out, it's a day that we're sifting through the ashes of terror attacks both in New Orleans and Las Vegas.
And everyone is on high alert because a lot of people are asking with what took place in New Orleans. And then you had that cyber truck explosion outside the Trump Hotel in Vegas. Is this part of a more series of coordinated planned attacks? We don't know, and we're hoping to find out.
Yeah, we're hoping to find out, but they sure look like they're related. I mean, you know, is it a coincidence that they both rented their vehicles from the same place? I don't think so.
Yeah, we're going to be all over both of these stories throughout the morning with full team coverage, including a national correspondent, Rory O'Neill, with the absolute latest, joining us in the next hour. And we are monitoring all news sources and public officials in New Orleans, in Las Vegas, and Washington, D.C., who are scheduled this morning to speak about these two awful acts. Tell you what, though, let's get this started right now with your traffic and weather together.
Cloudy skies today, highs in the mid to upper 60s. Tomorrow, partly cloudy, highs right around 70. And then on Saturday, cloudy skies early, followed by partly cloudy in the afternoon, highs in the mid to upper 70s. We're at 46 degrees. WOAI News Time, 5:11.
San Antonio's first news. That's Mr. T, Tim Merriman. She's Charity McCurdy. Charlie Parker, you get a double dose of Charlie today. He'll be along in the next hour with Those Were the Days. He'll also join us in studio a little bit later this morning. I'm Chris Duell. EJ Pacheco flying the Millennium Falcon solo. He's doing all the technical lifting this morning. And we are up and running on YouTube. If you would like to watch the broadcast, you can go to YouTube, search for 1200 WOAI. You can find us there. There's a live chat in real time that you can participate in as well if you choose to do so. And I just New Year's Eve, we're ringing in the new year. You know, I was watching Times Square. I was watching San Antonio. As you guys know, I was watching a 25-year-old video of my wedding for the first time in 25 years, which happened on New Year's Eve as we went from 1999 to the year 2000. With such joy and anticipation of this new year, we've been talking about it. Charity, Donald Trump taking office in 18 days. A lot of people very optimistic about the future of this country. And then these awful acts and the horrible loss of life, certainly in New Orleans.
And right now we're finding out that this man who was killed in the shootout and with police in New Orleans was inspired by ISIS. An ISIS flag was found in his truck. But right now, investigators are trying to determine, was he directed by ISIS or was this an attack that was inspired by ISIS? A lot to unpack. Apparently, the suspect, Shamsu Din Jabbar, was an Army veteran from Texas, lived in the Houston area, and posted a series of videos before the attack, actually talking about plans to kill his own family, and he had dreams that helped inspire him to join ISIS.
And I'm just wondering why the city of New Orleans didn't take a page out of the New York City playbook and actually block those intersections with big trucks and make sure the sidewalks are not available to get driven onto the street. And that's how it all happened. I just wish they would have done that.
Yeah, and as we know, he was able to jump barriers and get onto that sidewalk, get on those sidewalks on Bourbon Street in the French Quarter, and commit this heinous act. And as Charity describes, a couple of things that. One of which I think is very troubling, the fact that he's an Army veteran.
Yeah.
We certainly don't like the fact that he's from Texas, that Texas is now involved in this. But one of the things we have to take a look at is how does ISIS radicalize perhaps people in the U.S. Army? Is that a concern for us now? And how does ISIS radicalize an Army veteran? One of the many things that has to be examined, in addition to what Mr. T just talked about, hardening targets that might be around the country. And certainly San Antonio, a huge tourist territory and destination like New Orleans. So my goodness, it makes us all look at how we're doing things. Sadly, certainly this changed after 9/11, and things may be changing once again in the United States. More on this coming up. We'll get you caught up on headlines, traffic, weather, and more. WOAI News Time 5:15. We continue to bring you the absolute latest and react to the terror attacks in Las Vegas and New Orleans. And we've got a question for you about that as well. First, Charity McCurdy, what stories are you tracking?
2 Army veterans are linked to the New Orleans terror attack and the Trump Vegas hotel Cybertruck blast. Officials say the Sugar Bowl game between Georgia and Notre Dame in New Orleans will kick off today after being postponed due to the attack. And we'll introduce to you to San Antonio's first baby of the new year. Right now, traffic and weather.
Well, the cold front's not here yet. Just how will this rest of the week turn out? We welcome in News 4 San Antonio meteorologist Joe DiCarlo. Good morning, Joe. Thanks, Joe. It is 46 degrees. WOAI News Time 520.
San Antonio's first news as we continue to bring you full team coverage of the presumed terror attacks in New Orleans and in Las Vegas. And Mr. T was talking about the barriers that did not keep that apparent terrorist in that truck from killing at least 15 people, injuring dozens. Speaking of those barriers, here is New Orleans Police Chief Ann Kilpatrick.
We have been aware of the baller situation for a long time, and we did indeed harden those target areas where the ballers are. We have patrol cars out there as a hard target, as well as with barriers. This particular terrorist drove around onto the sidewalk and got around the hard target, where he did have a car there. We had barriers there. We had officers there, and they still got around.
New Orleans Police Chief Ann Kilpatrick. And Charity, you know, she's talking about hardening these targets. And obviously, hardening targets has been language used and a philosophy used in America since 9/11. And I think now, not just New Orleans, but San Antonio and every place that is going to have large crowds of people has to really, really re-examine how hardened those targets might be.
And apparently the vehicle barricades on Bourbon Street were down for repair because they had been malfunctioning. So they were in the process of being replaced before that terror attack happened, with a goal of having them ready to go for the Super Bowl on February 9th. So it really does make you re-examine, is this the new method being used by terrorists to carry out mass attacks using vehicles to mow down people? We saw that happen in Nice, France. So it's a huge concern, and it makes you want to reevaluate, A, going to any event where there's a large crowd, and B, the security protocols for it, because we were hearing that security had been beefed up, but clearly it wasn't enough.
Yeah, it obviously was not enough. And if you've ever been to Bourbon Street, especially on a holiday like that, where it's just wall-to-wall people walking down the middle of the street, I hate to say it, but it's an easy target. If you can get around those barriers and get onto Bourbon Street, that's an easy target, not a hard target.
Yeah, and so awful. I just think of those who were killed, those injured, among them a student from the University of Georgia, obviously there for the football game between Georgia and Notre Dame. Just people doing, how many times have we on New Year's Eve gone somewhere and just wanted to celebrate, wanted to be with friends, wanted to be with loved ones, wanting to kiss the person you care
Yeah.
about at midnight, and for just horrific attacks like this to take place, it is just unconscionable. But sadly, yet another wake-up call to terror and the possibility of terror on our soil in the United States. Now, we want to ask you, we're going to continue to bring you the absolute latest. There are officials in New Orleans, and yes, we're also covering the Las Vegas Tesla Cybertruck explosion outside the Trump hotel that killed one. We are also going to bring you the latest on that. So there's officials ready to speak this morning in New Orleans, in Las Vegas, in Washington, D.C. We'll continue to bring you that information as it develops, and I'm sure it will throughout the morning. But we also want to hear from you, your reaction to these events, these awful events in New Orleans and Las Vegas over the New Year's holiday. And are you concerned that a new wave of terror and a new wave of terror threats are now happening in America? Charity, we want them to do that on the Talkback feature. How do they get in touch with us?
With the free iHeart Radio app, you search 1200 WOAI, look for that red microphone button, hit it, 30 seconds to provide your feedback.
Yeah, and I'm interested to hear what the people have to say, because look, we've gone through this before, but with the new administration coming in, and the way the country was all divided before the election, I mean, is this going to be something that is going to be commonplace now? I'm interested.
We've talked about this quite a bit. We've talked about the border, and obviously it sure looks like the Trump administration is ready to move on day one. Even Tom Homan, we heard from him earlier in the week, he wants to move before day one to secure the border and get ready for mass deportations. But if indeed in the last several months, even years, terrorists have crossed that border into the United States, even though in this case, we're looking at an Army veteran in the New Orleans attack who's from Texas, you've got to wonder if terrorists might already be in place, getting even new ideas about how vulnerable American citizens might be. We'll continue to talk about it. We'll hear from you coming up. We'll get you caught up on all the latest headlines. Charity McCurdy at the bottom of the hour with all the big stories of the morning, and more on this story coming up. WOAI News Time, 526. My goodness.
And we're back.
We're back.
I've got more audio, by the way.
Okay, beautiful.
Let's go with, this guy's on Vegas, though. Yeah, this guy's talking about Vegas. He's a retired ATF agent, Scott Sweetlow.
Sweetlow?
Yeah. Hang on, people. And we're back.
Woo! Louie, Tim, Kemper, Sam, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everybody.
If you're new to the stream, we've had some technical problems lately, and we apologize. And we sure hope it's been fixed. But hopefully the stream won't crap out on us this morning. If it does, we apologize. And they're talking, Andrew Zimmel says apparently they're going to get a laptop in here with control of the system and being able to cut to Charity. Has he been cutting to Charity?
He did, because apparently somebody said, Sam Tobias says, Chris, it's good to be back on the live stream, back up, and we can actually see Charity now.
Good,
so
yeah. Because
I haven't noticed, but,
Yeah. EJ, until this morning, did not have the ability to cut to Charity. And we know a lot of you tune in for Charity.
Yeah.
As we say, come for the eye candy, stay for the chopped liver. So, Mr. Jay Willis, welcome in. Yeah, throughout the morning, I've got to go edit those synergenic spots. The copy did not correspond.
Of course not.
Like the 15-second spots are like
30.
25 seconds of copy.
They're 30.
Yeah.
This is a good one. Okay. So far, one.
Okay.
And it's somebody that we don't normally hear from, I don't think. I don't recognize the info.
Well, that'll make our consultant happy.
Yes. I don't like them. And we're back.
And you may want to just want one more sec.
All right. Right before Charity comes on, we'll let you know. I hope everybody had a wonderful New Year's Eve celebration.
Yeah, I hope you managed to have a good time.
Did you make it to midnight, Chris?
I made it to 2 a.m.
So did I.
Beth?
So did I.
Yep.
But I got a hell of a nap in before that. So
I didn't get a hell of a nap.
I woke up at 7.
I didn't get much of a nap at all.
I went to sleep at about 3:30 and woke up at 7, and because I set an alarm to wake me up. All right, here comes Charity, everybody.
.531 is our time. San Antonio's first news. Good Thursday morning. I'm Charity McCurdy. Among our top stories, a potential link between the New Orleans terror attack and Vegas Cybertruck explosion. And state lawmakers get ready to head back to Austin. First, traffic and weather together every 10 minutes and mornings.
I'm sorry, Charity's going to go away for a minute. Sorry.
Louisiana Attorney General Liz Muriel says there's no identity yet for the alleged accomplices.
We really don't have very much information about them at this time. We had some information this morning that led us to believe that there were multiple individuals who were involved and replacing those IEDs.
At least 15 are dead, dozens hurt after the attack. President Biden gave a statement at Camp David giving his condolences to the victims of the deadly attack.
To all the families of those who are killed, to all those who are injured, to all the people of New Orleans who are grieving today, I want you to know, I grieve with you. Our nation grieves with you. We're going to stand with you as you mourn and as you heal.
Police say they found an ISIS flag and possible explosives in the truck. The terrorist has been identified as Houston resident 42-year-old Shamsa Din Jabbar, a U.S.-born citizen who served in the Army. Texas leaders are responding on social media to the attack. Governor Abbott said the state police and the Texas National Guard are working to keep Texans safe. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick commended the police who killed the attacker in the shootout, and Senator Ted Cruz says he plans to work for the Trump administration to hold any accomplices accountable. Senator John Cornyn sent his condolences to the families of the victims. Investigators have begun searching a Houston home they believe is connected to the shooter. An explosion in Las Vegas is being investigated as another possible terrorist attack. Here's Fox's Jack Callahan.
The blast in a Tesla Cybertruck rocked the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas, killing the driver. Acting Special Agent in charge of the FBI in Las Vegas, Jeremy Schwartz.
We're here, we're deploying resources, and we will continue to do that until we get to the end of this and figure out exactly what happened and why.
Mindful of the attack in New Orleans, police have been searching for potential secondary explosive devices. Elon Musk updating on X that they've determined the explosives were in the bed of the Cybertruck and the explosion was unrelated to the vehicle, which was a rental. Jack Callahan, Fox News.
And law enforcement sources say 37-year-old Matthew Livelsberger rented the electric truck and was in the driver's seat when it blew up. State lawmakers rang in the new year, and now they're getting ready to head back to Austin as more people move to Texas. Governor Abbott says the legislature will need to make sure everyone's got enough water.
We have the resources, the tools, and the money to get that done, to take water challenges off the table, whether you're a business, whether you're a resident, whatever the case may be.
He says oil and gas producers already use a lot of water, and as Texas gets more semiconductor plants and artificial intelligence, the state will need to look at how to use water more efficiently. Abbott says lawmakers could also fund research into new technology like reusing wastewater and desalination. The incoming Trump administration will likely be a boon for the Texas energy industry. Beth Myers has more.
One of Donald Trump's campaign slogans was "Drill, baby, drill." Glenn Hammer is head of the Texas Association of Business, and he says he's glad there will be a return to focusing on America's energy independence.
We need more natural gas, but it's important for Texas to also be a leader on solar, on batteries.
He says put together, that will keep gas prices low for drivers because he says the world will rely less on foreign oil. The state's population is booming, and he says we'll need all the power we can get. I'm Beth Myers, News Radio 1200 WOAI.
The parents of San Antonio's first baby of 2025 are the recipients of some birthday goodies. Sid Barrientos was born at 12:13 a.m. New Year's Day at Christus Children's Hospital. First-time parents Crystal Cash and Omar Barrientos received a number of baby items donated by Christus Children and other healthcare systems in the city. The hospital also gave the family a New Year gift basket filled with baby essentials such as a baby bathtub with bath supplies, a New Year onesie, and toys. It is 5:37. News at the top and bottom of every hour, along with breaking news as it happens. I'm Charity McCurdy. Here's traffic and weather.
San Antonio's first news. Mr. T, Tim Merriman, Charity McCurdy. I'm Chris Duell. Charlie Parker coming up in the next hour with Those Were the Days. We are continuing to bring you coverage, full team coverage of both presumed terror attacks in New Orleans and in Las Vegas. And regarding that Las Vegas attack, that Tesla Cybertruck that exploded outside the Trump Hotel, killing the driver. Here is retired ATF agent Scott Sweetlow talking about that.
You can see multiple large flashes. You also hear whistling sounds in that video, and those whistling sounds are very consistent with the sort of fireworks that you could buy as a consumer and set off.
And I mean, again, you look at the possible and perhaps the probable connection of both of those vehicles rented from the same place, from the same merchant. That's pretty interesting.
And I imagine police will be combing through the social media use, any kind of Google searches of these two men allegedly responsible for these attacks. Both are now identified as Army veterans. As far as the Vegas Cybertruck explosion, that driver is identified as 37-year-old Matthew Livelsberger, who is an Army vet based out of Colorado. And we know that the New Orleans suspect, Shamsu Din Jabbar, is a 42-year-old Army veteran who resided in the Houston area, originally from Beaumont.
And I don't think it's any question that this is an act of terrorism. Now, whether it's
Yeah.
ISIS related or not, they'll get to dig into that and find out. What the guy had an ISIS flag on the back of his truck. But I also heard that there was other people involved in this. They still think there might be other people involved, but the placing of explosives around the city's French Quarter. Now, I heard there was 3 men and a woman that were in custody or being questioned about it, and then all of a sudden that went away. So we don't know what's going on with that yet.
Yeah, we are presuming we will get updates this morning from officials in New Orleans, specifically to what Mr. T is referring to there, certainly in Las Vegas, and on a federal level from Washington. We'll bring that to you throughout the morning. But Charity, I am very troubled, as you described, 2 Army veterans involved. The one from the Colorado area with the Tesla Cybertruck in Las Vegas, the one in the New Orleans attack with a residence in Houston. And we don't know, but I am just wondering here, did they know each other in the Army? And is there an active effort, in this case by ISIS or any other terrorist organization, to radicalize American service members? Obviously, we would assume any attempts to do that would probably fail 99% of the time. But if that is going on, if these two knew each other in the Army, if some of those other accomplices that they feel are out there were in the Army, and if they were in the same unit together or had a connection, that's something we need to know about.
Most definitely something to take a closer look at. And this is, not the first time. I mean, you think of the 2009 Fort Hood shooting, Nadal Hassan, Army major, psychiatrist. It was believed to have associations with terrorism, and that was his motivation for carrying out the attack, having Islamic radicalization. So it's just something to take a closer look at and make sure that we can hopefully head off any potential planned attacks.
And Mr. T, you talk about a military background. I'm reminded of Timothy McVeigh and the Oklahoma City bombing. Even though he had problems with the United States government, he was very, very disgruntled. No Islamic connections or affiliations, but it just shows you that people in the service in the military can be radicalized, and I think it's just something that we, as a nation, and certainly the military, might want to pay closer attention to, especially in the aftermath of these attacks.
Yeah, and I would like to know how long they've been radicalized. Have they been sitting and waiting for a target, or were they just recently radicalized and thought, okay, this is the thing to do now? I mean, there's a lot of questions still out there, and unfortunately, both suspects are dead, so we're not going to learn a lot from them, but from their houses and their computer searches and anything else we can find, they can figure something out. But I'm just it's kind of eerie, actually, to know that military people being radicalized. What if they're actually still in the military?
Yeah, that's a great question. How the safety of those serving in the military right now. And again, Charity, I assume that 99.999% of American service members could never be radicalized. But as we've seen, and you talk about Fort Hood, you talk about this, Timothy McVeigh, you can see, given percentages, it can happen, and its results can be very, very deadly.
And you wonder what the connection is to the incoming Trump administration, especially with that exploding Cybertruck outside that Vegas Trump hotel. Is this the motivation for potentially carrying out more attacks because they're unhappy with plans for the incoming Trump administration, more specifically linked to hardening our southern border?
Yeah, and the other thing that I find puzzling, did anybody else know about Turo before yesterday?
I did not.
The place that's like the Airbnb for car rentals. I had never heard of it. And the fact that they both went there, obviously there's not a lot of background check there, or they passed the background check, or however they vet these people, but they both went to that particular venue to get their cars is kind of alarming.
Yeah, and I would hope, Mr. T, to your point, that lawmakers take a look at Turo right now. We've got to see how they vet people getting the vehicles. And Turo perhaps needs to be shut down until guidelines are in place and rules of operation are in place to ensure that anybody renting any of those vehicles. And we need to look at, I mean, you think about 9/11 and you think of some of those, the jetliner that did, that went in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. You wonder if there were other attempts on New Year's Eve or New Year's morning,
that got thwarted,
and maybe other rentals through Turo that did not manifest themselves. Something went wrong, so someone else was unable to carry out their terror plot. We need to look at anybody who's rented from Turo anytime recently and look into their backgrounds as well. Lots more coming up. We will go back in time with Flashback, and we're asking your reaction as well. Are you concerned about a new wave of terrorism in America? We want to hear your talkbacks on the free iHeartRadio app. WOAI News Time, 545. It is time to go back in time. But what year will we land in? See if you can figure it out. We'll try to figure it out. Let's play Flashback. Was it 95, 96, or 97? Mr. T may have this in a bit because he loves Tony Braxton, but we'll let you know in just a sec. First, Charity, what stories are you following?
Cloudy skies today, highs in low to mid 60s. Tomorrow, partly cloudy skies, highs right around 70. And on Saturday, cloudy skies early, partly cloudy in the afternoon, highs in the mid to upper 70s. We're at 46 degrees. WOAI News Time, 5:52.
San Antonio's first news in a moment. More on the attacks in New Orleans and Las Vegas. But we got to figure out what year it was in Flashback as Madeleine Albright is made Secretary of State. Bryant Gumbel says farewell to the Today Show, waiting for Guffman in the theaters. And one of Mr. T's all-time favorites, Tony Braxton, with Unbreak My Heart. Mr. T, you want to take a shot at 95, 96, or 97?
Since I have no clue, I will go with the middle one. Charity, do you have a clue?
Yes, and I think it's the middle one, 96.
Okay. Well,
What gives you that clue, Charity? What
It's Tony Braxton, Unbreak My Heart. I was a junior in high school, and that was the jam. So
now, did you have a broken heart as a junior in high school? And was it unbroken when you heard that song?
I don't believe I had a broken heart, thankfully. But I just remember seeing that video. Tony Braxton, gorgeous,
Yes,
absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, that takes me back to that time.
Let's find out if it was 1996.
Whoa!
Charity, come on!
Oh, how can I
Wow.
get that so wrong?
That breaks my heart.
I guess I was a senior, you know?
Goodness.
Or that the broken heart was so painful, I forgot. You know, it was,
You
blocked it out.
Yeah, you blocked it out all these years.
Wow, I thought for sure we had it.
Absolutely. I'm
All
getting
right.
ready to
I'm
celebrate
upset now.
1996. All right. Well, we are not only bringing you the absolute latest, and we expect to get more information throughout the morning on the presumed terror attacks in New Orleans and in Las Vegas. But we want to hear from you as well. Are you concerned this is a new wave of terror in the United States? All aspects of the New Orleans attack and the Las Vegas attack, we want to get your reaction to. on the Talkback feature. Charity, how do people do that?
Using the free iHeartRadio app, you just search 1200 WOAI, look for that red microphone button. That's the Talkback. Hit it, 30 seconds.
And you'll sound like this.
Thanks to Joe Biden, we live in a third world country now. Keep locked and loaded and your head on a swivel at all times.
Hey guys, Stephen from Lauderdale. This attack relates to something that happened to me a few weeks ago. My wife was getting ready to run the rock and roll half marathon downtown, and I started looking around thinking, what if something happened? Where would I go? Where would I take my family? What would we do? And so now we all have to be aware of that. I'm sure many people have done that for years and years now, but we all have to be aware of what would we do if something like this happened.
Good morning, San Antonio First News. This is Bulletproof. I am an Army veteran. I did 20 years in the Army. Yes, I am worried about further terrorist attacks. Our southern borders have been open for 4 years where anybody and everybody of any type of terrorist cell could infiltrate our country. We made it easy for them.
Our thanks to Bulletproof there, and Bulletproof 20 years in the Army. Thank you for your service to our country. We also heard Stephen from Lytle. And Charity, we've talked a lot about that, about the vulnerability, certainly over the last few years at the border, the U.S.-Mexico border. And if you're a terrorist organization, you knew for the last few years, it's like, well, you wanted to go across, you want to infiltrate the United States? Let's get our peeps into Mexico and it'll be easy. And you've just got to wonder if there are potential terrorists or terror cells right now, even not affiliated with these attacks, Charity. They certainly have some new ideas on how they can hit us.
And it's frightening. And hopefully they are on the radar of our Justice Department. So as part of President-elect Trump's plan to weed out violent criminals and not just, illegal immigrants. I'm talking about people that are raising suspicion with their online activity. I think, we have to start also with internet usage, and hopefully these social media companies are playing a part in aiding law enforcement and flagging people who appear to be ISIS sympathizers. I think we need to start there as well.
And even when Donald Trump starts controlling the border, what about the ones that have already been here? 4 years. Yeah. They could have been here setting up shop, and God knows they've got money. So, what happens in the United States, if you've got money, you can buy anything you want.
Yeah. And as we talk about the border and the threat coming in from the border, again, the irony here this morning is that in each of these attacks, we are now looking at 2 Army veterans, one from the Houston area involved in the New Orleans attack, at least 15 killed, dozens injured, and the driver of that Tesla cyber truck that exploded in front of the Trump Hotel, supposedly, or identified as an Army veteran from the Colorado area. We will continue to bring you the absolute latest. In fact, national correspondent Rory O'Neill coming up with the latest. Charity with all the big stories at the top of the hour. WOAI News Time 5:58.
We're back.
Welcome in, everybody, on YouTube. We have lasted 1 hour on YouTube. I know, I'm not supposed to say it, not supposed to jinx it. But, man, as you know, and a lot of you are regulars, we've had issues. We've had problems on YouTube. So
we've had our issues.
Yeah.
And hopefully they've got some, cyber Cialis, so they can keep it up.
Cyber Cialis, I like that.
See, but if it's Cialis, it'd be Cyber Cialis. So
yeah.
Cyber Cialis.
Cyber Cialis.
Or Cyber Viagra.
I see what you were doing there now.
Cyber Viagra works.
Oh, I see it. Well, I got to go do my cyber synergenics editing.
All right, I'm going to let you guys
we'll be back.
Check out Charity because I got to do something too.
6 o'clock is our time. San Antonio's first news. Good Thursday morning. I'm Charity McCurdy. Among our top stories, investigators probe the New Year's Day terror attack. First, traffic and weather together every 10 minutes in mornings. Your Thursday forecast, mostly cloudy, a high near 65. Tonight's low near 50. Right now, 48 degrees. Well, the FBI doesn't believe the New Orleans terror suspect acted alone in a deadly attack that left at least 15 people dead and over 30 injured on New Year's Day. Here's Fox's Jeff Manasso.
The FBI says terrorist suspect Shamsu Din Jabbar flew an ISIS flag on the back of the truck he was driving as he mowed down people celebrating the new year. He was killed in a shootout with police, 2 officers injured. IEDs were found, with a search now potentially nationwide for others involved in the attack.
It's New Orleans right now, but are there other cities potentially that could be targets?
New Orleans Council President Helena Moreno, the FBI tracking the history of what we're told was a rental truck based out of Texas, where we're also told the suspect lived. For now, parts of Bourbon Street remain a blood-stained crime scene and closed to the public. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
Investigators have begun searching a Houston home they believe is connected to the shooter. A man in the house was detained, but officials said no arrests have been made. One of the victims in the New Orleans terror attack has a family connection to North Texas. Kristen Diaz has more.
Jack Besh is a wide receiver for the TCU Horned Frogs. He posted a message online saying that his brother, 28-year-old Tiger Besh, was killed in the attack in New Orleans. He was originally from Lafayette, Louisiana, and had played college football for Princeton. Officials with the TCU football program say that they're sending their love and support to the Besh family and all who are grieving during this incredibly difficult time.
And Georgia and Notre Dame were set to play in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans last night. The postponed game will now kick off this afternoon. President Biden gave a statement at Camp David, giving his condolences to the victims of the deadly attack.
To all the families of those who are killed, to all those who are injured, to all the people of New Orleans who are grieving today, I want you to know, I grieve with you. Our nation grieves with you. We're going to stand with you as you mourn and as you heal.
Meantime, police are chasing a lead in the explosion of a Tesla Cybertruck at a Trump hotel in Las Vegas. Here's Fox's Chanley Painter.
Police say they have identified the person who was driving the Tesla Cybertruck yesterday. It is believed the driver was a Colorado Springs native with military experience. The person was killed in the explosion outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. 7 others were injured. Authorities say they found gasoline and camp fuel canisters as well as large firework mortars in the truck. They were able to trace the vehicle back to Colorado using video footage captured at charging stations. And the vehicles used in both this and the New Orleans incident were rented from the same rideshare company, Turo.
Police found fireworks and fuel canisters in the bed of the truck. 1 person is dead, 7 others injured as a result of the blast. President-elect Trump's border czar nominee, Tom Homan, spoke with Fox's Hannity about the 2 incidents.
More is coming. I think both these incidents, Las Vegas and New Orleans, they're both going to be U.S. citizens. They're both going to have recent foreign travel. They're both on a suicide mission. Neither one thought they're going to go home. And I think you're going to see ISIS affiliation on both of them.
Well, at least 10 people are recovering after a mass shooting late last night in New York. Shots rang out just before 11:20 in Queens' Jamaica neighborhood outside a nightclub and event venue. 10 people are known to have been shot. Everyone is in stable condition so far. No arrests. It's been a violent start to the new year in San Antonio so far with a couple of shootings. Eric Lycum has details.
San Antonio police are looking for a suspect who shot and critically wounded a man on New Year's Day. Cops were called out yesterday afternoon just west of downtown to Paso Chico Alley and South Brazos Street to find a man in his 30s with a gunshot wound to his chest. He's fighting for his life in a local hospital. The suspect, also believed to be in his 30s, was seen headed south. A New Year's Eve shooting near the Drury Plaza Hotel injured 2 people. Police said just after midnight, two 20-year-olds were involved. One suspect shot one victim, then himself. Both are hospitalized with non-life-threatening injuries. It's unclear if it was intentional. Both shootings under investigation. Eric Lycum, News Radio 1200 WOAI.
A man is in the hospital with a serious head injury after falling off a bridge over the Riverwalk just after midnight on New Year's Day and landing on a sidewalk. Witnesses told police an intoxicated man had climbed over the bridge railing before falling. An ambulance took the 21-year-old man to a local hospital with possibly life-threatening head trauma. It is 6:06. The Spurs take on the Nuggets tomorrow night in Denver. The voice of the Spurs, Bill Schoening, has more in today's Spurs Report. News at the top and bottom of every hour, along with breaking news as it happens. I'm Charity McCurdy. Traffic and weather coming up.
San Antonio's First News, our full team coverage on the attacks in New Orleans and in Las Vegas rolls on. We are moments away from connecting with national correspondent Rory O'Neill, who will bring us the latest. But first, let's get you caught up on traffic and weather together.
Cloudy skies, highs in the low to mid 60s. Tomorrow, partly cloudy in the morning and the afternoon, I should say. Highs right around 70. Saturday, cloudy skies early, followed by partly cloudy in the afternoon, highs in mid to upper 70s. 46 degrees, WOAI News Time, 6:10.
San Antonio's first news, Charity McCurdy, Mr. T, Tim Merriman, I'm Chris Duell, Charlie Parker coming up in the next half hour. With those were the days as our full team coverage on these attacks in New Orleans and Las Vegas rolls on. Let's check in now with national correspondent Rory O'Neill. Rory, what is the latest on these apparent terror attacks?
Well, let's first turn to New Orleans, where I think the main focus today is making sure that the Superdome area will be safe for the Sugar Bowl happening this afternoon. Of course, there are still many different avenues of investigation. They're trying to figure out if the suspect who drove the pickup truck through the crowd had accomplices. How many? Where are they? And they're trying to recreate this digital footprint. You know, the man may have had accomplices, but he's from Texas. So who did he know on the ground in New Orleans? Did they come from Texas as well? All that is trying to be determined as we speak. And then you mentioned what happened in Las Vegas. That was also a rented truck through that vehicle sharing app. It was also involving an Army veteran. And in both cases, both men were killed. So we're trying to figure out, was there some other connection between these two, or was this just a coincidence?
And Rory, we know the shooter's home in Houston is being searched. Do we know more about who was detained and what investigators found?
Well, we know that obviously the computers are going to be top of mind, right? And we believe that there were some videos that were posted online as the suspect was driving from Texas to Louisiana that suggested that this attack was inspired by ISIS. And they're going to try to look at the distinction. Was it inspired by ISIS, or was it directed by ISIS? Was ISIS somehow able to recruit this man? Perhaps the other suspect in the Colorado/Las Vegas attack. So are they targeting military personnel? Are they going after people who are having marital problems or are seriously in debt? Like, what's going on there to make these people turn? That's why so much of this investigation is focused now on the homes of these two men.
Well, if there were indeed accomplices in the New Orleans attack, is it safe to have this Sugar Bowl today?
Well, now that's the Attorney General would disagree with scheduling the game for today. She wanted at least another day to complete security upgrades around the Superdome. The governor in a press conference yesterday said they're bringing in more National Guard members to really put a force multiplier out there to make sure the scene is safe. So the governor says, look, this game is going to be fine. It'll be safe, and I'm going to be there myself. So, he's confident that the scene will be secured.
Any sense yet? You mentioned, Rory, the Army connection, the Las Vegas Tulsa Cybertruck explosion. Apparently, an Army veteran from Colorado involved in that one. You mentioned the Army veteran from Houston involved in the New Orleans attack. Any sense from the Army or from the federal government now to look closer at why Army veterans can be radicalized like this?
Well, right. And we do know that both men served at the same military base. We don't know if it happened at the same time, but, because then you can also go back to the Nidal Hassan case and the Fort Hood shooting. Is there something happening where members of the U.S. military are somehow being recruited by these terrorist groups because they are trained in weaponry and have some of this expertise? So that's part of the ongoing investigation. I think you're asking the same question that investigators are asking.
And Rory, in New Orleans, the usual barriers were not in place due to ongoing repairs. But, considering the patrol cars in their place didn't serve as a deterrent, you wonder if police are re-examining security protocols.
Well, they'd have to. And, look, so the bollards that they put in place, they didn't work because the beads would get stuck in them, is what the mayor said yesterday. Wow. So they were replacing them using some federal money because they're hosting the upcoming Super Bowl. So they get federal money for security upgrades. That included new bollards that were being installed and were supposed to be ready in time for the Super Bowl. The police superintendent said they had a vehicle parked there instead, but they just drove around it. So, but the question though is, well, if the replacement bollards are just going to be in the same spot, then you could still drive around them since they're not on the sidewalk. So they might have to be rethinking a lot of this.
Our thanks to national correspondent Rory O'Neill. Our full team coverage of these attacks on New Orleans and Las Vegas continue. We'll get you caught up on headlines, traffic, weather as well. Coming right up. WOAI News Time, 6:15. Well, the Sugar Bowl game between Notre Dame and Georgia is on in the New Orleans Superdome for 3 o'clock this afternoon. But is it a good idea? The Louisiana Attorney General doesn't seem to think so. We'll talk about that coming right up. First, Charity, what stories are you following?
The Houston home of the New Orleans terrorist is being searched as police search for other suspects in the deadly attack. The driver who died when a Cybertruck blew up outside the Trump Vegas hotel has been identified as an Army vet from Colorado, and state lawmakers are gearing up for the start of the next legislative session. We'll have the latest right now, traffic and weather.
Cloudy skies today, highs in the low to mid 60s. Tomorrow, partly cloudy, highs right around 70. And on Saturday, cloudy skies early, then partly cloudy in the afternoon, highs in the mid to upper 70s. We're at 46 degrees. WOAI News Time, 6:21.
San Antonio's first news. Well, that Sugar Bowl college football playoff game between Notre Dame and Georgia was scheduled for yesterday in the aftermath of that apparent terror attack that killed 15 and injured dozens. It's moved to today at 3 o'clock. And now the Louisiana Attorney General, Liz Morrell, didn't want it to go today at 3 o'clock. She wanted to take at least another day. We'll listen to her here, and you'll hear her asked a question by Lawrence Jones of Fox and Friends.
Safety of everybody in New Orleans while we kind of carry out and go through with this game. I did express some concern about that. I think that, yesterday there were discussions about whether to have the game last night, which I frankly thought was absurd. We still had bodies that had to be removed from the ground and an open investigation to secure the crime scene. And so, it seemed to me that was not a hard decision to make, even if the logistics of it might have been more complicated.
Madam Attorney General, the latest that we heard was there were more suspects that helped this gentleman carry out this plot. How do you have a game? How do you have any type of mass event when you have people potentially that contributed to this event that are still within the city or in greater Louisiana?
That's a very good question. I think that we have a lot of law enforcement presence in New Orleans. When I left there last night, all I could see were blue lights all over downtown New Orleans and the French Quarter. I know that the police have conducted a grid search of the entire area down in downtown and in the French Quarter and around the Superdome. So the governor has added 100 National Guard to that area to ensure that it is secure. But there's a lot going on. It's an active investigation of a crime scene after a terrorist event. And I don't think it's not possible to take this too seriously.
That is Louisiana Attorney General Liz Morrell, and she referenced the governor, the Louisiana governor, Jeff Landry. And Mr. T, we just heard from Rory O'Neill. The governor says it's going to be the safest place to be, and the governor says, I will be there myself.
Yeah, but I'm with, the fact that there are people possibly that were linked to this still out and about in New Orleans. I would be very concerned about having this game today.
Yeah, the Louisiana AG, who we just heard from, Liz Muriel, is wanting the game to take place tomorrow instead of today, just to give more time for officials to respond to this tragic attack as they clear that crime scene, as they look for other potential accomplices. But, safety is paramount. And I understand they're deploying more National Guard troops there, but again, what's to prevent someone from taking a large vehicle and mowing down people?
It's a great question. And I guess part of the calculus by law enforcement officials is so often terrorists use the element of surprise. They use complacency when a lot of times we're not expecting a terror attack. The fact that New Orleans, and in this case, the Superdome this afternoon at 3:00, will be extra vigilant for terrorism. I guess they're calculating that, especially with hundreds of National Guard personnel extra being deployed there, that they can thwart any possibility of a terror attack. We shall see. We'll continue to bring you the latest on this in the next half hour as well. Charlie Parker with Those Were the Days, WOAI News Time 625.
6:30 is our time. San Antonio's first news. Good Thursday morning. I'm Charity McCurdy. Among our top stories, a potential link between the New Orleans terror attack and Vegas Cybertruck explosion. First, traffic and weather together every 10 minutes in mornings. Your Thursday forecast, mostly cloudy, a high near 65. Tonight's a low near 50. Right now, 51 degrees. Plenty of speculation about the attack on the New Orleans New Year's Eve celebrations, with many beginning to blame possible security failures and potential accomplices who planted explosives around the site. Louisiana Attorney General Liz Muriel says there's no identity yet for the alleged accomplices.
We really don't have very much information about them at this time. We had some information this morning that led us to believe that there were multiple individuals who were involved and replacing those IEDs.
At least 15 are dead, dozens hurt after the attack. President Biden gave a statement at Camp David giving his condolences to the victims.
To all the families of those who are killed, to all those who are injured, to all the people of New Orleans who are grieving today, I want you to know, I grieve with you. Our nation grieves with you. We're going to stand with you as you mourn and as you heal.
Police say they found an ISIS flag and possible explosives in the truck. The terrorist has been identified as a Houston resident, 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar, a U.S.-born citizen who served in the Army. Texas leaders are responding on social media to the attack. Governor Abbott said the state police and the Texas National Guard are working to keep Texans safe. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick commended police who killed the attacker in the shootout. Senator Ted Cruz says he plans to work with the Trump administration to hold any accomplices accountable. Senator John Cornyn sent his condolences to the families of the victims. Investigators have begun searching a Houston home they believe is connected to the shooter. And an explosion in Las Vegas is being investigated as a possible terrorist attack. Fox's Jack Callahan has more.
The blast in a Tesla Cybertruck rocked the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas, killing the driver. Acting Special Agent in charge of the FBI in Las Vegas, Jeremy Schwartz.
We're here, we're deploying resources, and we will continue to do that until we get to the end of this and figure out exactly what happened and why.
Mindful of the attack in New Orleans, police have been searching for potential secondary explosive devices. Elon Musk updating on X that they've determined the explosives were in the bed of the Cybertruck and the explosion was unrelated to the vehicle, which was a rental. Jack Callahan, Fox News.
And law enforcement say 37-year-old Matthew Libelsberger, an Army vet from Colorado, rented the electric truck and was in the driver's seat when it blew up. State lawmakers rang in the new year, and now they're getting ready to head back to Austin as more people move to Texas. Governor Abbott says the legislature will need to make sure everyone's got enough water.
We have the resources, the tools, and the money to get that done, to take water challenges off the table, whether you're a business, whether you're a resident, whatever the case may be.
He says oil and gas producers already use a lot of water, and as Texas gets more semiconductor plants and artificial intelligence, the state will need to look at how to use water more efficiently. Abbott says lawmakers could also fund research into new technology like reusing wastewater and desalination. Well, the Bexar County Jail is once again in compliance with the Texas Commission on Jail Standards. The state agency placed the jail out of compliance in November, meaning the jail wasn't meeting minimum state jail standards. There were 13 inmate deaths at the jail in 2024. New technology and procedures are now in place to handle health emergencies. Well, it's been a violent start to the new year in San Antonio so far, with a couple of shootings. Eric Lycum reports.
San Antonio police are looking for a suspect who shot and critically wounded a man on New Year's Day. Cops were called out yesterday afternoon just west of downtown to Paso Chico Alley and South Brazos Street to find a man in his 30s with a gunshot wound to his chest. He's fighting for his life in a local hospital. The suspect, also believed to be in his 30s, was seen headed south. A New Year's Eve shooting near the Drury Plaza Hotel injured 2 people. Police said just after midnight, 2 20-year-olds were involved. One suspect shot one victim, then himself. Both are hospitalized with non-life-threatening injuries. It's unclear if it was intentional. Both shootings under investigation. Eric Lycum, News Radio 1200 WOAI.
The parents of San Antonio's first baby of 2025 are the recipients of some birthday goodies. Sid Barrientos was born at 12:13 a.m. New Year's Day at Christus Children's Hospital. First-time parents Crystal Cash and Omar Barrientos received a number of baby items donated by Christus Children's and other healthcare systems in the city. The hospital also gave a family a New Year gift basket filled with baby essentials such as a baby bathtub with bath supplies, a New Year onesie, and toys. Well, the FBI has a message for sports leagues about burglars targeting professional athletes. Rex Oates has more.
Players' homes are being targeted while they're out on road trips. Experts say the same thing happens to normal people, too, when they post their vacation plans on social media for everyone to see.
Do not post any pictures while you are away from home to let bad guys know that no one is at your property.
Here in Texas, Tarleton State University criminology professor Alex Del Carmen says the bad guys have become more sophisticated about how they find victims. They'll troll social media looking for easy targets that flash fancy watches and the like. I'm Rex Oates, News Radio 1200 WOAI.
Texas is moving on in the college football playoff after surviving a double overtime thriller against Arizona State in the Peach Bowl, 39-31 from Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Texas will play in the Cotton Bowl for the CFP semifinal round on January 10th. Big Lots is preparing to close all of its stores. The retailer filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in September with plans to be acquired by a capital management firm. Big Lots announced last month that it's no longer moving forward with that agreement. 5 stores in San Antonio will shut down, along with 1 in Converse and 1 in New Braunfels. It is 6:37. News at the top and bottom of every hour, along with breaking news as it happens. I'm Charity McCurdy. Traffic and weather coming up.
San Antonio's first news. Charity McCurdy, Mr. T, Tim Merriman, Charlie Parker. With those were the days coming up in less than 10 minutes at about 6:48. Charlie will join us in studio a little bit later this morning as well. EJ Pacheco doing all the heavy technical lifting as we continue our full team coverage of these apparent terror attacks in New Orleans and in Las Vegas. Regarding the New Orleans attack, where at least 15 people were killed, dozens injured when when an Army veteran rammed a pickup truck into a crowd on Bourbon Street in the French Quarter. Here is New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell.
Over 10 years ago, the city of New Orleans implemented an infrastructure project placing bollards on Bourbon Street. Shortly thereafter, the malfunctions of those bollards ensued.
And talking about these ballards, which were supposed to protect people walking on the sidewalks and down Bourbon Street and other places in New Orleans, as we heard from Rory O'Neill, Charity, one of the problems was that beads were falling in and making them suspect.
Yes, and of course they were malfunctioning, and they were in the process of being replaced with the goal of having them ready to go for the Super Bowl on February 9th, which is going to be played about a mile from where that attack occurred. But they put patrol cars in the place of those barriers, which did not serve as a deterrent for the terrorists, who just went around them and mowed down at least 15 people, injuring 30 others.
Now, I know that, looking back on this, hindsight's always 2020, but to have those police cars there and not block the sidewalks, because that's how he got around them, is just by driving on the sidewalks. I guess they figured since, we have the intersection blocked, no car will drive onto this. But I think this is going to change the way everything is done all around the country after this.
I so agree with you. I think a couple of things happened and now will happen as we move forward from this. I think what happens with a lot of these terror attacks, there's a certain level of complacency. When we go through a number of months or even years without a terror attack, everybody thinks, well, we're good. We got this covered. Nothing's going to happen here. But Charity, we need to rethink everything in this country when it comes to securing our citizens. Certainly when there are large gatherings of people, they probably need fresh eyes to look at each situation like this, whether it's the French Quarter in New Orleans or night in old San Antonio, and look at these places where there are large gatherings of people through the eyes of a terrorist. What are the vulnerabilities, and how could a terrorist possibly strike?
And crowd control is not easy, because while you want to prevent vehicles from going into crowded areas, you also want to allow the crowd to flow down the street. I mean, they can't climb over patrol cars or barriers. I'm sure they wouldn't want that. Not an easy solution, but I think you do need to start with that Turo, that rental app that lets owners rent out their cars. Also Airbnb. The New Orleans terrorist was using an Airbnb where he was making some explosives. So again, there's a lot of dots that can be connected, and that includes social media as well.
And you think about the Bourbon Street on New Year's Eve, Bourbon Street on any day, you got a lot of people that, let's just say, are under the influence, are probably not, keeping an eye, not being as vigilant as they probably should be. But you shouldn't have to worry about that. They should have been able to close off all that street, all that area where no vehicle would be allowed to get on that area. We've got the Final Four coming up here in San Antonio in March. Are we looking ahead now? Are we thinking about that?
I sure hope so. And you would think that city and local officials of any municipality that has a major event coming up, and T cites a big one coming to San Antonio a little bit later this year, they've got to rethink all of the security. And Charity, you brought up that Turo app, and we all said this morning we had not heard of until these incidents. And apparently both vehicles used in the New Orleans and Las Vegas attack rented out of that Turo vehicle sharing app. I would love to see an act of either an executive order by the president, or I want to see Congress act and shut down Turo until we find out how we can better vet the people using it. And again, I wonder if there were other rentals on Turo, other possible terror attacks that were planned across the country that for whatever reason maybe didn't come off. I would like some scrutiny of anybody who rented a vehicle through that app in the last couple of weeks. We need to take a look at everybody who's been associated with it.
And you wonder if these individuals, both in New Orleans and the Cybertruck explosion in Vegas, were they on the radar whatsoever of law enforcement? I don't think they were. And it really raises questions, especially when you consider the New Orleans terrorist posted videos talking about his love for ISIS and having dreams that helped him inspire him to join ISIS. So again, we don't know if this was ISIS-directed attack or ISIS-inspired. We're still figuring that out.
And what if this was just practice? Because we got another big event coming up in 18 days in the Washington, D.C. We've got the inauguration of President Trump. If this was practice to see what, how just getting people off guard, so to speak. I mean, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that can happen. A lot of questions still need to be answered.
Lots of questions that we have, and our full team coverage of these two apparent terror attacks in New Orleans and Las Vegas rolls on. Coming up, Charlie Parker with Those Were the Days. Then we're going to hear from you. We want your reaction to this. Are you concerned that a new era of terrorism has begun in the United States of America? Your talkbacks coming up as well. WOAI News Time, 645.
Two Army veterans are linked to the New Orleans terror attack in the Trump Vegas Hotel Cybertruck blast. Officials say the Sugar Bowl game between Georgia and Notre Dame in New Orleans will kick off today after being postponed due to the terror attack and a violent start to the new year in San Antonio. We'll have details right now, traffic and weather.
Cloudy skies today, highs in low to mid 60s. Tomorrow, partly cloudy, highs right around 70 degrees. And then on Saturday, cloudy early, partly cloudy in the afternoon, highs in the mid to upper 70s. We're at 47 degrees. WOAI News Time 6:52.
San Antonio's first news. Our thanks to Charlie Parker. For those were the days. Charlie is in the building, and he'll join us in studio a little bit later this morning. Our full team coverage of these terror attacks in Las Vegas and New Orleans continues. And coming up at 7:10 on a segment we call Wait Till You Hear This, we'll hear from House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and former FBI agent Bobby Chacon on these attacks.
And Charlie Parker is a regular of New Orleans. I know he goes at least once a year, so I know he's familiar with that area where it happened. So we'll get his thoughts on this whole incident coming up.
Yeah, looking forward to Charlie Parker's perspective on these apparent terror attacks in New Orleans and Las Vegas. And as we react, as we hear from experts, as we continue to listen in for officials in New Orleans, Las Vegas, and in Washington, D.C. on the latest involving these cases, we're also asking you on the Talkback feature on the free iHeartRadio app your thoughts on this, and are you concerned we are moving into a new era of terrorism in the United States of America? Charity, how do they get in touch with us?
The free iHeartRadio app. You just search 1200 WOAI and look for that red microphone button. Hit it 30 seconds to provide your feedback.
And you'll sound something like this.
I noticed that the first response from MAGAs were the person that committed this crime was somehow an illegal immigrant. He was a American-born citizen who served in the U.S. military at one time.
Good morning. I don't think the terrorists actually win with the incidents and making the headlines and the slaughter of people. I think they are fighting a bigger battle, which is to cause all of us to walk in fear. So make your safety plans, be aware, but don't let them win. Don't live in fear. Walk boldly. Have a great day.
Morning, crew. Jerry and Blanco. I'm pretty sure we all knew that something was going to happen. We just didn't know who was going to be the ones to get hurt. It's going to keep happening. It'll probably happen sometime during this game. All they have to do is create a stampede, and many more will be hurt. Even if the National Guard's there to thwart it, it will still have happened. Y'all have a good morning. Stay safe.
Amen. Our thanks to Jerry and Blanco. Before that, Kemper. Before that, Tracy Bogert. Lots to unpack there. And Charity, I want to start with Kemper, and I applaud her message. You know, we heard this after 9/11. If you live in fear now because of what happened, then the terrorists win. We are America. We are the land of the free. Obviously, we take every precaution possible. Obviously, we arm ourselves and we arm law enforcement and we arm our military and we are vigilant. But amen to Kemper. Do not walk in fear. Do not give in to fear. Do not let the terrorists win.
But have a plan. And if you're like me, and I think I could speak for you guys as well, when you go anywhere where there's a crowd, you look for the nearest exit. You kind of have a plan in the back of your head. Okay, what am I going to do if I need to immediately flee this venue? I think that's important as well, because ignorance isn't necessarily bliss. You got to think smartly, use good judgment, and don't necessarily feel the need to hang out after midnight anywhere. And not that something couldn't happen before midnight, but I think that factors into a lot of violent acts as well as the time of day they take place.
And keep your head on a swivel. That's what you mean. Just stay vigilant whenever you're anywhere. Charity, you're all right. I know where every exit is. I know where every way to get out of any place is. But you got to understand, it was New Year's Eve, and people on Bourbon Street are there for a reason. It might have been a little bit under, intoxicated, let's just call it that, and not paying attention to what's going on around them, and that makes them the perfect target.
Continuing to unpack what we just heard from our listeners, we heard from Jerry in Blanco, who said more could happen, and he believes perhaps more could happen today, as the Sugar Bowl, which was scheduled for yesterday, has been rescheduled 3 o'clock today at the New Orleans Superdome between Notre Dame and Georgia. He talks about perhaps another attack and perhaps people beginning to flee in fear, a stampede. I still go back to this, Charity, and I pray to God I'm correct on this, and I could be wrong, but terrorists tend to utilize our complacency, and they kind of utilize the element of surprise. And I think the fact that everybody in New Orleans now is on full alert, we've talked about this, hundreds more National Guardsmen are being brought out to the Superdome today. We heard from Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry, who says it's going to be the safest place in Louisiana. The governor says, I will be there at the Superdome today. So I got a feeling, just based on previous terror attacks, Charity, it's unlikely to happen again today, but again, there could be precedent.
And the fact that there's potential accomplices planting explosive devices, in New Orleans. The fact that they haven't nailed that down or ruled it out, rather, that's concerning to me. Why not delay the Super Bowl one more day just to give law enforcement more time to secure the area and rule out any other potential suspects?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of logistics involved in that, and I get that it should be postponed, but I just think that New Orleans doesn't want to do that. You got people there that have spent a lot of money to be there, which shouldn't be a problem, shouldn't be a matter of anything. If you think it's not safe, you should postpone it again.
Yeah, whoever is in charge where the buck stops, and that might be Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry. If he felt there was a threat, he should stop it. But one of the considerations here is competitive advantage. It's already delayed a day. You have the schedule for the college football playoffs. Penn State is awaiting the winner of Notre Dame versus Georgia, unless you altered the start of the next round of the college football playoffs. Whoever winds up winning this game, Notre Dame or Georgia, they're already going to have one less day of preparation for the next round, should that turn into 2 days. I realize that may be a ridiculous argument in the face of loss of life or terror. That's why the Louisiana Governor, Jeff Landry, and everybody else associated has to make sure that the situation at the Louisiana Superdome is secure this afternoon at 3 o'clock. We will continue to bring you full team coverage on these attacks on New Orleans and Las Vegas coming up at 7:10. Wait till you hear this. We'll hear from House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and former FBI agent Bobby Chacon on these attacks. But right now, Charity McCurdy with everything you need to know, as WOAI News Time is 7 o'clock.
Seven o'clock is our time. San Antonio's first news. Good Thursday morning. I'm Charity McCurdy. Among our top stories, investigators probe the New Year's Day terror attack. First, traffic and weather together every 10 minutes in mornings. Your Thursday forecast, mostly cloudy, a high near 65. Tonight's low near 50. Right now, 52 degrees. The FBI doesn't believe the New Orleans terror suspect acted alone in a deadly attack that left at least 15 people dead and over 30 injured on New Year's Day. Here's Fox's Jeff Manasso.
The FBI says terrorist suspect Shamsuddin Jabbar flew an ISIS flag on the back of the truck he was driving as he mowed down people celebrating the new year. He was killed in a shootout with police, 2 officers injured. IEDs were found, with a search now potentially nationwide for others involved in the attack.
It's New Orleans right now, but are there other cities potentially that could be targets?
New Orleans Council President Helena Moreno, the FBI tracking the history of what we're told was a rental truck based out of Texas, where we're also told the suspect lived. For now, parts of Bourbon Street remain a blood-stained crime scene and closed to the public. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
Investigators have begun searching a Houston home they believe is connected to the shooter. A man in the house was detained, but officials said no arrests have been made. One of the victims in the New Orleans terror attack has a family connection to Texas. Kristen Diaz has more.
Jack Besh is a wide receiver for the TCU Horned Frogs. He posted a message online saying that his brother, 28-year-old Tiger Besh, was killed in the attack in New Orleans. He was originally from Lafayette, Louisiana, and had played college football for Princeton. Officials with the TCU football program say that they're sending their love and support to the Besh family and all who are grieving during this incredibly difficult time.
Georgia and Notre Dame were set to play in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans last night. The postponed game will now kick off this afternoon. President Biden gave a statement at Camp David, giving his condolences to the victims of the deadly attack.
To all the families of those who are killed, to all those who are injured, to all the people of New Orleans who are grieving today, I want you to know, I grieve with you. Our nation grieves with you. We're going to stand with you as you mourn and as you heal.
Meanwhile, a Tesla Cybertruck exploded outside Trump Tower in Las Vegas. Here's Las Vegas Metro Police Department Sheriff Kevin McMahill.
We do know the truck was rented in Colorado. We were able to trace that truck through the Tesla charging stations, and it arrived here in Las Vegas this morning at about 7:30 and went up and down Las Vegas Boulevard before immediately pulling into the Trump Towers.
Tesla CEO Elon Musk said there were fireworks or explosives in the back of the truck. 1 person is dead, 7 others injured. Law enforcement sources say 37-year-old Matthew Livelsberger, an Army vet from Colorado, rented the electric truck and was in the driver's seat when it blew up. President-elect Donald Trump's border czar nominee Tom Homan spoke with Fox's Hannity about the 2 incidents.
More is coming. I think both these incidents, Las Vegas and New Orleans, they're both going to be U.S. citizens. They're both going to have recent foreign travel. They're both on a suicide mission. Neither one thought they're going to go home. And I think you're going to see ISIS affiliation on both of them.
The vehicles used in both incidents were rented from Turo, a platform that lets owners rent out their cars. At least 10 people are recovering after a mass shooting late last night in New York. Shots rang out just before 11:20 in Queens, Jamaica neighborhood outside a nightclub and event venue. Everyone was reported in stable condition and no arrests. House Speaker Mike Johnson is pushing to remain Speaker ahead of a Friday vote. Here's Fox's Ryan Schmelz.
Despite an endorsement from President-elect Trump, some Republicans have not committed to supporting Speaker Johnson on the House floor. Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee hasn't made his decision yet, but tells Fox News he thinks the endorsement will get Johnson over the finish line.
I think that the die has been cast pretty much.
Johnson can only afford to lose 2 Republicans to get the votes needed to become Speaker. Kentucky's Thomas Massie has indicated he's still a no. The House will vote for a Speaker on Friday. In Washington, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
Texas is moving on in the college football playoff after surviving a double overtime thriller against Arizona State in the Peach Bowl, 39-31 from Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Texas will play in the Cotton Bowl for the CFP semifinal round January 10th. The Spurs are taking on the Nuggets tomorrow night in Denver. The voice of the Spurs, Bill Schoening, has more in today's Spurs Insider, brought to you by Credit Human. Today's Spurs Insider brought to you by Credit Human. News at the top and bottom of every hour, along with breaking news as it happens. I'm Charity McCurdy. Traffic and weather coming up.
San Antonio's first news, our full team coverage of the terror attacks in New Orleans and Las Vegas continue in a moment. Our segment, Wait Till You Hear This, we'll hear from House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and former FBI agent Bobby Chacon. But before we go to traffic and weather for a moment, a thank you to Stephen from Lytle. If you listen to the program regularly, you probably know he's a big contributor on the Talkback feature and often brings some very, very funny jokes. They're kind of like dad jokes. And Charity, we got a huge feast of multiple assortments of Dunkin' Donuts and Dunkin' Donuts muffins, and it's pretty amazing what he sent out to us this morning.
That is so sweet. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, that was an unexpected surprise coming into work. That's awesome.
Yeah, I thank you so much, Stephen.
Stephen, and I've already had 2 donuts, Stephen. There goes my diet. There goes my diet for 2025.
Oh, you can wait till next year.
I know. We'll start all over again after the show. More coming up. Wait till you hear this. We'll dive more into these terror attacks. First, your traffic and weather together.
Cloudy skies today, highs in the low to mid 60s. Tomorrow, partly cloudy, highs right around 70. And on Saturday, cloudy skies early, partly cloudy in the afternoon, highs in the mid to upper 70s. It is 50 degrees. WOAI News Time, 7:11.
San Antonio's first news every weekday morning. We span the globe to bring you the constant variety of audio at this time in a segment we call Wait Till You Hear This. Now, we're going to hear from a couple of people. First, a reaction last night from the Ingram angle on Fox News Channel. It'll be House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. Then you'll hear from this morning on Fox and Friends, just minutes ago, former FBI agent Bobby Chacon on the Las Vegas attack. First, here is House Majority Leader Steve Scalise.
You know, we've been saying for over a year now that there's likely to be a terrorist attack on our home soil with an open southern border. We don't know if that's the reason, you know, the truck did come across the southern border, but, you know, we just know that we have to be on a higher alert. And all these agencies need to be not just on a higher alert, but need to be candid with the public about what they find.
I would advise somebody that's going, I would advise my own family if they had tickets not to go to that game tomorrow. But if you're going to the game, the minute you get off public transportation or out of an Uber or park your car, when you leave your transportation, to the time you're inside the hardened target, you're vulnerable. So watch where you're going. Don't go into a crowd. Don't stand in a crowd outside the magnetometers and stand there vulnerable. So that's the soft zone that's going to be on every single venue. It's impossible not to have it. But when you're going into a venue, do not gather and stay in a vulnerable spot where there's no security waiting to go through, say, a magnetometer line. I would advise that don't go to the game. And if you're going to go to the game, be careful on how you ingress.
That is former FBI agent Bobby Chacon earlier this morning on Fox and Friends. Before that, we heard from House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. And Bobby Chacon, their charity, advising that people don't go to the game. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what kind of attendance we have today. That kickoff set for 3 o'clock this afternoon at the Superdome. I wonder how many people do choose to stay away.
That's a great question. I know that's a hot ticket, and you've made plans, likely paid for a hotel. But at the same time, when you hear about the potential of other accomplices being involved, I think I'd be very, very concerned about my safety, considering, yes, there's going to be additional National Guard deployed, but you know, they thought they had all the security protocols needed to prevent what happened on New Year's Day.
Yeah, and my thought is too, if there are any accomplices still around the New Orleans area, and if they do have any IEDs, you know, any kind of explosive devices, it might not be the same kind of attack that we just saw. It might be different, and I just wonder if they're aware of this. I'm sure they are, and they're ready for it. But that would just be on my mind going into that game.
Yeah, you bring up accomplices, and one thing we can look at is that each driver, the one in New Orleans and the one in Las Vegas, died in those attacks. They were both Army veterans. We heard from Rory O'Neill earlier this morning. They did serve at the same military base. We're trying to track down if they served together or if they knew each other. They both use that Turo app. So to Mr. T's point, if there are accomplices in the New Orleans area, what if each of them involved in this plot knew that they were going to die or were willing to die and see this as some kind of a jihad move and that death is a happy outcome for them in doing this. So that is a huge concern if there's still people in New Orleans who may want to, you know, take their turn at trying to take out as many American citizens, innocent lives as they can. We will continue to bring you the latest on this. We're going to look for your talkbacks. In fact, we'll play your talkbacks coming up on the free iHeartRadio app. We want your reaction to these terror attacks. And are you concerned about a new era of terrorism in the United States? We'll get you caught up on headlines, traffic, weather, and more. WOAI News Time 7:16. Just ahead of headlines, traffic, and weather together, we're going to hear your talkbacks, your reaction to these terror attacks in New Orleans and Las Vegas. Charlie Parker is in the building. He's going to join us at 7:50 in about a half an hour. He is a frequent goer to New Orleans. He goes there frequently, knows the territory, knows the landscape well. We'll get his perspective on this. But first, Charity McCurdy, what stories are you following?
The New Orleans terrorist was reportedly inspired by ISIS as investigators look into possible links with the Vegas Cybertruck explosion. A man suffered a serious head injury after falling from a Riverwalk bridge during New Year's celebrations. And 2 more programs punched their ticket to the college football playoff semifinals on New Year's Day. We'll have the latest right now, traffic and weather.
Cloudy skies today, highs in the mid to upper 60s. Tomorrow, partly cloudy, highs right around 70. And on Saturday, cloudy skies early, then partly cloudy later in the day, highs in the mid to upper 70s. We're at 50 degrees. WOAI News Time, 7:20.
San Antonio's first news, our full team coverage of the terror attacks in New Orleans and Las Vegas rolls on. Charlie Parker in the building, his perspective coming up at 7:50. We will continue to bring you the latest we know throughout the morning, including coming up at 7:40. Charity with all the big stories you need to know about at the bottom of the hour. And you are a big part of our coverage as well on the Talkback feature on the free iHeartRadio app. We're asking you your perspective, and are you concerned of a new era of terrorism in America? Charity, how do they get us that information?
The free iHeartRadio app, you search 1200 WOAI and look for that red talkback button, hit it, 30 seconds to provide your feedback.
And you'll sound like this.
The sad thing is, it's too late. They're all here already. Biden let them in. The only thing I can think of is it's going to get worse. Pray that it doesn't. Have a good day.
Good morning, WOAI. Please remember that the Biden administration allowed millions of unvetted people in this country. Not only did they allow them in, they went and got them and flew them in at taxpayer cost. Have a great day, everybody. Keep your powder dry.
Well, this is horrible that would happen over there in New Orleans. But my question is, so what, are they going to try to ban trucks now? I mean, it wasn't an assault rifle, it was a truck. So what, are they going to start, banning trucks and cars? Y'all have a great day.
Appreciate all of those. And the first two, Charity, citing the Biden administration. Of course, as we've been underscoring throughout the morning, the 2 suspects here were American citizens and Army veterans in the New Orleans attack. The suspect dead from the Houston area in the Las Vegas Tesla Cybertruck explosion in front of the Trump Hotel. The suspect, an Army veteran from Colorado. But I think a lot of people, as we are concerned about the flood of people who were not vetted across the U.S.-Mexico border in the last few years, certainly during the Biden administration. And I think, if nothing else, Charity, if there's, and I think law of averages, there have to be some that are looking to do us harm. And if nothing else, these 2 terror attacks expose even more vulnerabilities that other terrorists will probably want to take advantage of.
And I don't think it's any coincidence that that Cybertruck explosion took place outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. I think it's a sign of potentially what's to come and the general feeling of these would-be terrorists towards the incoming Trump administration, which is planning to go hard on immigration, securing our nation's borders. So I think that's something to be aware of as well, is the fact that they're probably not too thrilled about the incoming president.
And no, we're not trying to ban trucks. We just don't want them driving on places where there's people walking.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the big concern right there, because that's a soft target. If you've got a street full of people walking and you manage to get a vehicle around a barricade onto that street, you could do some damage with that. And look, I'm not calling for the banning of trucks. I'm just calling from keeping them off of the places where people are walking.
Yeah. Every municipality now that has large gatherings of people, and we certainly do here in San Antonio, certainly with NIOSA and Fiesta, and Mr. T brought up earlier, the NCAA men's basketball Final Four is coming in March and April. So I think everybody, San Antonio included, needs to re-examine security procedures. And, Charity, this terrorist, the New Orleans accused terrorist who is dead, the suspected terrorist, he made these videos proclaiming his love for ISIS and that he wanted to join ISIS. How can there not be automatic red flags if somebody makes a video on Facebook or on YouTube or Instagram or wherever and proclaims their love for ISIS? I think we ought to have agents knocking on their door that night whenever that happens.
I totally agree. And I feel like we've been here so many times before where a would-be terrorist has posted something on some kind of social media platform for others to see and should have been flagged by these social media companies, which should be working hand in hand with the Justice Department, local law enforcement, so we can prevent these acts of terrorism from happening in the first place.
Yeah, if they can actually hear me say something about a product and then send me advertisings for that product, they should be able to flag those ISIS or anything like that, report and remove them.
That is so true. I mean, you think about targeted ads on social media and on the internet, and you talk about it, and your phone is picking it up. Yeah, there has got to be technology and algorithms to seek out people who seem to be inspired by or supportive of terrorist groups like ISIS. It seems to be a no-brainer, and hopefully that's something the incoming Trump administration will look at. We will continue to bring you the latest on this. Remember, Charlie Parker's Perspective is coming at 7:50. Charity right now at the bottom of the hour with all the big stories you need to know about on this first Thursday of 2025. WOAI News Time is 7:26.
Sure. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us.
How the heck are you?
And I've lost. There it is.
SRS SR $2001 $? How the heck are you?
Good to see you, Julie Tucker. Welcome,
Julie
Anthony
Tucker.
Bass, Eric. We love Eric. We love all of you, actually. Carol Garza.
Eric Bowden. How the heck are you?
For being here. Charlie Parker in studio in a little while.
Doom, doom, doom.
And as you can see, we've got a switching capability to other cameras, including charity that wasn't working for EJ in the control room.
He's got it going on now.
So, yeah, that's a good thing.
EJ the DJ, got it going on.
DJ Jazzy EJ. Well, look at that, Eric. I counted and completed 214 veteran photos in 2024. Anybody in here who doesn't know Eric, and if you know a veteran, get him in touch with Eric. He does an amazing service for veterans.
Okay, SRS, I like that.
He makes portraits of them that are spectacular.
Fantastic,
You have to see them to understand why we rave about them. Eric, remind me, because I don't have it off the top of my head. Give us your website again. Portraitofaveteran.com.
Portraitofaveteran.com.
or .org? I don't know.
Yes, definitely.
If you Google portrait of a veteran, you'd probably
it's
find
definitely .com or .org. Chris.
Okay.
I know that for a fact.
It's just a great way to honor veterans, and we urge anybody who's a veteran or has a veteran in their life to get in touch with Eric.
Anthony, we're not telling you to live in fear, man. I don't know where you're getting that from.
Is Anthony saying we're telling him to live in fear?
Yeah, says, yes, that's exactly what our team is giving us.
We underscored what Kemper said earlier, which is do not live in fear.
Yeah,
we
be
all
vigilant.
Applauded and supported.
Yeah, your
what
head
she
on a
had to
swivel,
say.
man. Know what's going on around you. There's nothing. That's nothing that has fear in it. That's just being smart, man, and knowing what's
Vigilance,
around.
we're all
Yeah.
about vigilance and being prepared.
Yeah.
Crap, I should go do some of my editing. Come to think of it, I'm never going to get out of here. I'll be back.
Chris will be back.
See if I can convert a 25 into a 15.
Oh, I'm sure you can. All right, here comes Charity, everybody.
How select
.31 is our time. San Antonio's first news. Good Thursday morning. I'm Charity McCurdy. Among our top stories, a potential link between the New Orleans terror attack and Vegas Cybertruck explosion. First, traffic and weather together every 10 minutes in mornings. Your Thursday forecast, mostly cloudy, a high near 65. Tonight's low near 50. Right now, 52 degrees. The suspect behind the deadly New Orleans terror attack has been identified as 42-year-old Shamsa Din Jabbar, a U.S. citizen and Army veteran. The rented truck used to ram into a crowd of people on Bourbon Street had an ISIS flag on the back. This is raising new concerns about terror threats across the country, including at the southern border, where 8 Tajikistani nationals with ISIS ties were arrested a few months ago after entering the country illegally. Incoming border czar Tom Homan says this latest attack is another example of how terror groups have been emboldened.
I mean, when you got, protesters walking down the streets in New York City carrying terrorist flags, chanting death to Israel and death to the United States, and nothing's being done about it. And when you have a border that was secure under President Trump, and this administration unsecured it on purpose, it's an open invitation for those around the world that hate this country.
At least 15 people were killed in the attack, with dozens more injured. Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrill says there's evidence that multiple people were involved. Texas leaders are responding on social media to the attack. Governor Abbott said the state police and the Texas National Guard are working to keep Texans safe. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick commended the police who killed the attacker in a shootout. Senator Ted Cruz says he plans to work with the Trump administration to hold any accomplices accountable. Senator John Cornyn sent his condolences to the families of the victims. Investigators have begun searching a Houston home they believe is connected to the shooter. Meanwhile, an explosion in Las Vegas is being investigated as a possible terrorist attack as well. Here's Fox's Jack Callahan.
The blast in a Tesla Cybertruck rocked the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas, killing the driver. Acting Special Agent in charge of the FBI in Las Vegas, Jeremy Schwartz.
We're here, we're deploying resources, and we will continue to do that until we get to the end of this and figure out exactly what happened and why.
Mindful of the attack in New Orleans, police have been searching for potential secondary explosive devices. Elon Musk updating on X that they've determined the explosives were in the bed of the Cybertruck and the explosion was unrelated to the vehicle, which was a rental. Jack Callahan, Fox News.
And law enforcement sources say 37-year-old Matthew Livelsberger, an Army vet from Colorado, rented the electric truck and was in the driver's seat when it blew up. The FBI says it disrupted an alleged plot to kill employees of a pro-Israel organization on the first night of Hanukkah. Forrest Pemberton allegedly traveled to the South Florida offices of the organization just before Hanukkah to scout the area. He was arrested on the first day of Hanukkah when he was found in a rideshare vehicle carrying weapons and ammo. President Biden is handing out the second highest civilian medal to the leaders of the January 6th congressional panel. Here's Fox's Chris DeMeo.
House Select Committee Chairman Benny Thompson and Vice Chair Liz Cheney are among 20 people that will get the Presidential Citizens Medal today. The president has been considering whether to offer preemptive pardons to Cheney and others President-elect Trump has targeted. The White House issuing a statement saying President Biden believes these Americans are bonded by their common decency and commitment to serving others. Chris DeMeo, Fox News.
State lawmakers rang in the new year, and now they're getting ready to head back to Austin. As more people move to Texas, Governor Abbott says the legislature will need to make sure everyone has enough water.
We have the resources, the tools, and the money to get that done, to take water challenges off the table, whether you're a business, whether you're a resident, whatever the case may be.
He says oil and gas producers already use a lot of water, and as Texas gets more semiconductor plants and artificial intelligence, the state will need to look at how to use water more efficiently. Abbott says lawmakers could also fund research into new technology like reusing wastewater and desalination. It's been a busy year for customs agents in South Texas who are catching more than drugs and humans being smuggled. Michael Board has more.
Last year set records for the number of baby monkeys seized from smugglers who were trying to sneak them across the southern border and sell them as pets. It's frustrating for experts who say there is a growing appetite for exotic animals in this country.
It's just this, it never ends well. It never does.
Dante Fenolio at the San Antonio Zoo says that monkeys are much stronger and dangerous than people realize, and that's only the start. He says having a monkey as a pet can spread diseases. The zoo is part of a nationwide push to ban private possession of primates. Michael Board, News Radio 1200 WOAI.
It is 7:37. News at the top and bottom of every hour, along with breaking news as it happens. I'm Charity McCurdy. Now traffic and weather.
San Antonio's first news. Mr. T, Tim Merriman, Charity McCurdy. I'm Chris Duell. Charlie Parker coming up in studio in just about 10 minutes at 7:50. He is gone and regularly goes to New Orleans many, many times. We'll get Charlie's perspective on the attack in New Orleans that killed at least 15 people, injured dozens. We're also covering that Las Vegas Tesla Cybertruck that exploded, killing the driver at the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. And regarding the New Orleans terror attack, here is Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry.
We intend to be transparent in assessing any defects that may have existed in the system so that we can address them. It's the only way to ensure that any mistakes that were made are corrected.
And as we know, and as we learned this morning, Charity, that Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry will be there at the Superdome today, 3 o'clock, for the rescheduled Sugar Bowl between New Orleans, check that, Notre Dame and Georgia. And although, and we heard from her earlier, Louisiana Governor, check that, Louisiana Attorney General, Liz Murrill says she wanted to postpone it at least one more day.
And I think that is not a bad idea. I realize there's a lot of logistics involved, and a lot of people would be inconvenienced by another postponement. But when you consider that there are potential accomplices still out and about in connection to this New Orleans terrorist attack, I don't care how many National Guard troops you have deployed. I think a lot of people will enter that stadium feeling very unsettled.
Yeah, I think that the whole city is going to feel a little unsettled for a while until they get this all worked out. But I'm with you, Charity. If there's people out there that are still, on the loose that might be involved and might have bad thoughts, bad intentions. I don't know about postponing the game, but I think as a person there, I would be more vigilant of what's going on around me at all times. If you see something, say something.
Yeah, especially because we have these reports and this speculation that there are accomplices involved, and we have to assume, accomplices involved in that attack on New Orleans that killed 15, injured dozens, that they could still be in the New Orleans area. And who is to say that they are not planning on acting out and would probably want to do so in a target-rich environment? And that would be, since New Year's Eve, the next biggest gathering in New Orleans of people is going to be today, 3 o'clock kickoff at the Superdome.
And you wonder what kind of connection between this New Orleans terror attack and the Cybertruck explosion outside of Trump's hotel in Las Vegas, if these were part of a series of larger coordinated attacks. We know both men were Army veterans that apparently at one time were stationed at the same base. But beyond that, we don't know. We don't know the motivation for the Cybertruck explosion. Right now, only the driver, that Army vet, was killed. There were 7 others that suffered minor injuries. But again, this brings new fears over the fact that there might be a wave of attacks coming. We just don't know yet.
And sadly, in both of these incidents, the perpetrators were killed, which it's a good thing they were killed, but I would like to find out what caused them to radicalize after being in the military. What was the thing that sent them over the edge to turn this way?
It's a great question, and hopefully there's a cyber footprint. Hopefully there's other service members who perhaps knew them, as Charity mentioned. It has been documented that both of these Army veterans, the one in the New Orleans attack, the one in the Las Vegas attack, did serve at the same military base. It is yet to be known if they served together or in the same unit or knew each other. But certainly, Charity, you think about this, they both rented their vehicle from that Turo vehicle sharing app. Both of these things happen essentially on the same day. It sure seems to me like a coordinated attack. And it makes me wonder, were there other proposed attacks that for whatever the reason did not happen, and perhaps the people involved in those may be looking to strike again at another time?
And until we get those answers, don't you think we should maybe put off gathering thousands of people for a football game? I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
In that case, then they win. The terrorists win. And we don't want the terrorists to win. And yes, I think you should be vigilant, but I don't know about calling it off completely today or moving it to another day. I mean, there's a lot of things involved. And if we do that, doesn't it give the illusion that they won?
There is that. And that goes all the way back, certainly, to 9/11, when we were told that if you change your way of life, then the terrorists win. And I just got to believe in hope, Charity. You know, the Louisiana governor, in this case, Jeff Landry, is in charge of the Louisiana National Guard, and he has chosen to deploy hundreds of Louisiana National Guardsmen to the Superdome today that were not going to be there had there not been a terror attack. I got to believe in hope that show of force will deter any terrorist attempt this afternoon.
One would hope so, but clearly security protocols are going to be looked at not only in New Orleans, but in cities across the country that are having major events that attract large crowds, because terrorist people who are hell-bent on doing harm, they seem to find a way, and we have to adjust accordingly. Not be scared, but adjust security protocols accordingly.
And maybe it's time that we do that all across the nation and anytime there's anybody around, because, you know, like you said, complacency is what they're looking for. And I think maybe we have been a little complacent, and it's time to step that up.
Yeah, Donald Trump takes office 18 days from now. I would imagine this will be a high priority for his incoming administration. Coming up, Charlie Parker has gone and continues to go to New Orleans many, many times. He knows the landscape. He knows what those crowds are like. He knows the geography. He'll talk to us, his perspective on this attack on New Orleans coming up. WOAI News Time 745. Charlie Parker is in studio. His perspective on the terror attack on New Orleans coming right up. First, Charity, what stories are you following?
2 Army veterans are linked to the New Orleans terror attack and the Trump Vegas Hotel Cybertruck blast. The Sugar Bowl game between Georgia and Notre Dame in New Orleans is set to kick off today after being postponed due to the attack and a violent start to the new year in San Antonio. We'll have the latest right now, traffic and weather.
Cloudy skies today, highs in low to mid 60s. Tomorrow, partly cloudy, highs 70. And then on Saturday, cloudy skies early, partly cloudy in the afternoon, highs in the mid to upper 70s. We're at 50 degrees. WOAI News Time, 7:51.
San Antonio's first news. Charlie Parker in studio. We've said it all morning because we know Charlie Parker goes to New Orleans a lot. And Charlie, you just said something before the microphones turned on. You said you know the city of New Orleans better than you know the city of San Antonio. So given that, your thoughts on all this?
Well, we've seen all the video coverage, pretty much ad nauseum at this point. Let me try to give you a geographical perspective. The shot that you see of the Walgreens on the corner of Canal and Bourbon.
Yes.
Picture Canal as East Houston Street in San Antonio.
Okay.
Runs from one end of town all the way to the other.
Okay.
Okay.
And then you've got the French Quarter pretty much in the middle. There are everything. I don't know my north and south from east and west. I don't know which direction Canal runs. But let's say, for argument's sake, that it's north and south.
Okay.
So Canal is north and south. Then all your side streets, Chartres, Bienville, Bourbon, and about 4 or 5 others, or 3 or 4 others in the French Quarter, all run east and west off of Canal. Bourbon doesn't run across Canal. Once you get across Canal, it's a whole different street. So that's your geographical perspective. We know that Bourbon Street right now is a crime scene. I would like to know if the rest of the French Quarter is business as usual.
As far as, you mean like what, the casino?
Well, that's way down at the other end of Canal.
Okay.
Well, I could drive a golf ball from Bourbon Street to the casino.
Okay, so it's not that far.
Is the casino still open?
That's a great question.
Is Chartres Street, which is one street over from Bourbon, running east and west based on our fictional or possibly fictional scenario.
Right.
Is that still open?
I don't think so.
Others?
I don't think so, because they were telling people yesterday to just stay inside because they didn't want you out sightseeing yesterday because all that area was being searched for, other explosive devices and things like that. So I'm not sure that any of that was open.
And what's the story with the explosive devices? One report, they're telling you that they found 3 or 4 and some other people involved. And then, 20 minutes later, well, we didn't find any. And the people that we thought were involved weren't involved.
They were just walking by. Yeah.
It takes a while.
Yeah. They did find some in the truck. That I do know.
Yeah.
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 Yes.
Something else to remember is that Bourbon Street is always closed.
Right.
24 hours a day. You cannot drive down Bourbon Street. You can drive down Chartres or some of the other streets that run the same direction as Bourbon, but Bourbon Street is always closed.
Pedestrian only, yes.
Yes. So if a terrorist wanted to do what this guy did, They could have just gone around to the west side or east side of the square and drove down one of the side streets and drove right up to Bourbon and made a left because those, what are they called again?
Ballards, yeah.
Ballards.
Yeah.
Yep. Those are at the ends of the street.
Right.
Those aren't set up on the street.
No.
The entire street, just at the two ends.
Okay.
So you could come in from a side and you're going down, Avenue A, and you get up to Bourbon where most of the people are, and you could just make a left or a right, and all of those streets are one way. It's probably the biggest soft target that we have in America.
And as far as like peak times on Bourbon Street, Charlie, is
Pick
it
one.
is it 3 in the morning? Is it midnight? I mean,
Peak time is probably 7 to midnight.
Yeah, after it gets
That
dark.
would be
yeah.
peak time when it's.
But on New
you
Year's
don't even
Eve,
want to be on the street.
But on New Year's Eve, it goes past that, doesn't
Well,
it? Yeah.
it goes past that all the time. But peak time is probably 7 to midnight. But there's always a couple hundred people on Bourbon Street. I don't do Bourbon Street. I stay off Bourbon Street.
Why? Why do you stay off Bourbon Street?
Because there are too many drunks.
Okay.
Too many drunks, too much revelry for me. I used to live on Bourbon Street, not literally.
But you got the older you got.
Yeah, but the older I got, I go different, the other side streets. There's bars every 10 feet on any street in New Orleans. So you're covered there. If the game had been played, the Sugar Bowl had been played last night, would you have gone?
Probably.
Rarely do terrorists strike when you're ready for them. So I would have gone. Because once this happened, now there's vigilance and there's more of a security force. So I would have gone.
Well, and that's another thing about New Orleans. The Superdome, you ain't driving up there.
No.
You're parking somewhere else and you're walking to the Superdome or to the, what's that drink?
Smoothie King.
The Smoothie King, which is right next door.
And then walking over from there. Yeah.
And then you're walking from the thing. You're not driving through that area. So that's not a problem to begin with. And I would have gone last night. And today, if I had a ticket, I would have gone. As I told my daughter yesterday, if we, as a populace in this country, if we stop visiting, going to locales, events that have had problems in the past, nothing maybe to this degree, because of something that did happen in the past, we never leave the house.
True.
You can't. I don't like the phrase "you can't let the terrorist win,"
but
that's kind of what you would be doing. You got to go on about your life, and we all know that city
is
politically
resilient.
It's just not taken care of correctly.
No.
We're going to continue with Charlie Parker here just after the top of the hour. More of his perspective. He is a regular in New Orleans. And national correspondent Rory O'Neill with the latest at 8:20 WOAI News Time, 7:58.
8:01 is our time. San Antonio's first news. Good Thursday morning. I'm Charity McCurdy. Among our top stories, investigators probe the New Year's Day terror attack. First, traffic and weather together every 10 minutes and mornings. Your Thursday forecast, mostly cloudy, a high near 65, tonight's low near 50. Get a move on, it is 52 degrees. The FBI doesn't believe the New Orleans terror suspect acted alone in a deadly attack that left at least 15 people dead and over 30 injured on New Year's Day. Here's Fox's Jeff Panasso.
The FBI says terrorist suspect Shamsu Din Jabbar flew an ISIS flag on the back of the truck he was driving as he mowed down people celebrating the new year. He was killed in a shootout with police, 2 officers injured. IEDs were found, with a search now potentially nationwide for others involved in the attack.
It's New Orleans right now, but are there other cities potentially that could be targets?
New Orleans Council President Helena Moreno, the FBI tracking the history of what we're told was a rental truck based out of Texas, where we're also told the suspect lived. For now, parts of Bourbon Street remain a blood-stained crime scene and closed to the public. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
And investigators have begun searching a Houston home they believe is connected to the shooter. And one of the victims in the New Orleans terror attack has a family connection to North Texas. Kristen Diaz reports.
Jack Besh is a wide receiver for the TCU Horned Frogs. He posted a message online saying that his brother, 28-year-old Tiger Besh, was killed in the attack in New Orleans. He was originally from Lafayette, Louisiana, and had played college football for Princeton. Officials with the TCU football program say that they're sending their love and support to the Besh family and all who are grieving during this incredibly difficult time.
And Georgia and Notre Dame were set to play in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans last night. The postponed game will now kick off this afternoon. Meantime, police in Las Vegas still don't know if an exploding Tesla Cybertruck has any connection to the terrorist attack in New Orleans. Here's Fox's Eben Brown.
Investigators in Las Vegas now say that rented Tesla Cybertruck drove into town around 7:30 in the morning on New Year's Day and drove up to the Trump International Hotel near the Vegas Strip just minutes before exploding into a violent fireball caught on security video.
We do know the truck was rented in Colorado. We were able to trace that truck through the Tesla charging stations.
Las Vegas Sheriff Kevin McMahill adds the driver who was killed in the blast is believed to have been a Colorado Springs native and had military experience. The explosion is believed to have been caused intentionally. A connection to the attack in New Orleans is not ruled out. Eben Brown, Fox News.
President-elect Donald Trump's border czar nominee Tom Homan spoke with Fox's Hannity about the 2 incidents.
More is coming. I think both these incidents, Las Vegas and New Orleans, they're both going to be U.S. citizens. They're both going to have recent foreign travel. They're both on a suicide mission. Neither one thought they're going
San Antonio's first news as our coverage on the terror attacks in Las Vegas and New Orleans rolls on. Charlie Parker, a regular goer to New Orleans in studio. But first, your traffic and weather together.
Cloudy skies today, highs and low to mid 60s. Tomorrow, partly cloudy, highs 70. And then on Saturday, cloudy early, partly cloudy later in the day, highs in the mid to upper 70s. We're at 51 degrees. WOAI News Time 810.
San Antonio's first news coming up at 8:20. National correspondent Rory O'Neill with the latest on the New Orleans and Las Vegas attacks. But right now, Charlie Parker in studio. And if you're just tuning in, Charlie goes to New Orleans a lot, regularly. In fact, he's got a plan to go watch the Spurs play in New Orleans in a number of days. Charlie, I got to ask you, have you ever felt insecure in New Orleans? And when you go back next time, I think, to see the Spurs play in a few weeks, will you feel less secure after this terror attack?
I don't think I'll feel less secure, but that's a really interesting question. I've never, in the front part of my mind, thought about, am I protected here? Is everything okay? But in hindsight now with what's happened, you don't see, at least when you're in the French Quarter, you don't notice what I would call a heavy police presence.
You don't see it.
I mean, you see them, but you just don't think about it. I don't care whether you're there to party on Bourbon Street or you're using it as, a shortcut to get to another street or whatever, but it is what it is. Now I don't want to sound like I'm, knocking the police in New Orleans, but that city's got a lot of political problems. Mayors, you heard the mayor yesterday talk about that those bollards were inoperable, and they're just trying to make do because leadership at any level has got to be more vigilant.
Yes.
They're the ones that are, supposed to be protecting us. A couple of things I want to say. We've already talked about, you had the Sugar Bowl that was moved to today. Carnival begins on Monday, on 12th night. So technically on Sunday, and runs all the way until Mardi Gras, which is actually just one day, technically.
Right.
And that's the day before Ash Wednesday, March 4th. So there will be, I don't know what's going to happen now, but there will be parades and this and that. And you talk about going to the Superdome.
Yeah.
You and I both remember going to the Super Bowl in February of 2002.
At the
Now,
Superdome.
you had you were 3 months removed from 9/11, so a lot of changes were put in place, but we know the security that day was absolutely incredible, and it'll be like that again. I don't see anything, excuse me, I don't see anything else happening between now and the Super Bowl or during, but anything can happen. We know that.
Now, you mentioned off the air that when you go to the casino, you've never had to walk through a metal detector. I can't remember walking through a metal detector in any casino. Do you think that's something that might start happening?
I think it's certainly possible. Again, as I asked earlier, I don't even know if Caesars, what used to be Harrah's, the casino, is even still open. And the one thing, if nothing else, and I know that some of you listening right now are going to hear what you want to hear, not what is being said. Yes, we all know illegal immigration, the border crossings are a big, big problem in this country. It has no relevance whatsoever to this situation that happened in New Orleans.
As far as we know right now.
Except
unless we learn more. But the vehicle, the truck was from Mexico.
The truck went into Mexico and then came out of Mexico. So
Yeah,
we don't know why it went to Mexico.
The truck that was used in New Orleans, rented on the
But that's
Turo
not an
app.
illegal immigration problem.
No.
This guy's an American citizen.
But what if he was radicalized by somebody that came across the border illegally, an ISIS member that radicalized him here instead of online?
What if he was radicalized by a guy who supports ISIS that's been an American his whole life?
It's possible. It's very possible.
Anything is possible. And I'm also tired of hearing the talking heads and everybody else talking about, oh, well, then you had the one in Las Vegas. Can't be a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. Well, if you don't believe in them, the word wouldn't exist.
Well, yeah.
Could be a coincidence.
Except for they both got the trucks from the same.
And it happened on the same day.
They could have got them from Enterprise.
Right.
They could have got them from Hertz.
And they were both Army veterans, and they both served, we know now, on the same military base, although we don't know if there's a specific connection yet.
Well, the key there for me is the things that we don't know.
Yes. Correct.
Y'all have been around me long enough to know how I am. I don't like speculation. Do your investigation. Tell me if new news comes up. Tell me that news. And that's once. That's all I need to know. And then when it's all said and done, give me your end result. Because we could speculate from here until the cows come home.
So true. And coming up, we'll get the latest from national correspondent Rory O'Neill. That is Charlie Parker. Lots more coming up. In fact, we'll get you caught up on headlines, traffic, and weather. Coming right up. WOAI News Time 8:16. We're moments away from the latest on the New Orleans and Las Vegas terror attacks with national correspondent Rory O'Neill. First, Charity, what stories are you following?
The New Orleans terrorist was reportedly inspired by ISIS as investigators look into possible links with a Vegas Cybertruck explosion. A man suffered a serious head injury after falling from a Riverwalk bridge during New Year's celebrations. And with their win over Arizona State in the Peach Bowl, UT advances to the semifinal round at the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic in AT&T Stadium. Well, the latest right now, traffic and weather.
Cloudy skies today, highs in low to mid 60s. Tomorrow, partly cloudy, highs 70. And then on Saturday, cloudy skies early, partly cloudy later in the day, highs in the mid to upper 70s. We're at 51 degrees. WOAI News Time, 8:20.
San Antonio's first news. Normally at this time, we check in with Mike Opelka from the Pure Opelka podcast. He is on assignment. We expect him back next week, but our full team coverage of these attacks on New Orleans and Las Vegas continues. Now we check in with national correspondent Rory O'Neill. Rory, what is the latest on these terror attacks?
Well, let's first turn to New Orleans, where I think the main focus today is making sure that the Superdome area will be safe for the Sugar Bowl happening this afternoon. Of course, there are still many different avenues of investigation. They're trying to figure out if the suspect who drove the pickup truck through the crowd had accomplices. How many? Where are they? And they're trying to recreate this digital footprint. You know, the man may have had accomplices, but he's from Texas. So who did he know on the ground in New Orleans? Did they come from Texas as well? All that is trying to be determined as we speak. And then you mentioned what happened in Las Vegas. That was also a rented truck through that vehicle sharing app. It was also involving an Army veteran. And in both cases, both men were killed. So we're trying to figure out, was there some other connection between these two, or was this just a coincidence?
And Rory, we know the shooter's home in Houston is being searched. Do we know more about who was detained and what investigators found?
Well, we know that obviously the computers are going to be top of mind, right? And we believe that there were some videos that were posted online as the suspect was driving from Texas to Louisiana that suggested that this attack was inspired by ISIS. And they're going to try to look at the distinction. Was it inspired by ISIS, or was it directed by ISIS? Was ISIS somehow able to recruit this man? Perhaps the other suspect in the Colorado/Las Vegas attack. So are they targeting military personnel? Are they going after people who are having marital problems or are seriously in debt? Like, what's going on there to make these people turn? That's why so much of this investigation is focused now on the homes of these two men.
Well, if there were indeed accomplices in the New Orleans attack, is it safe to have this Sugar Bowl today?
Well, now that's the Attorney General would disagree with scheduling the game for today. She wanted at least another day to complete security upgrades around the Superdome. The governor in a press conference yesterday said they're bringing in more National Guard members to really put a force multiplier out there to make sure the scene is safe. So the governor says, look, this game is going to be fine. It'll be safe, and I'm going to be there myself. So, he's confident that the scene will be secure.
Any sense yet? You mentioned, Rory, the Army connection, the Las Vegas Tulsa Cybertruck explosion. Apparently, an Army veteran from Colorado involved in that one. You mentioned the Army veteran from Houston involved in the New Orleans attack. Any sense from the Army or from the federal government now to look closer at why Army veterans can be radicalized like this?
Well, right. And we do know that both men served at the same military base. We don't know if it happened at the same time, but, because then you can also go back to the Nidal Hassan case and the Fort Hood shooting. Is there something happening where members of the U.S. military are somehow being recruited by these terrorist groups because they are trained in weaponry and have some of this expertise? So that's part of the ongoing investigation. I think you're asking the same question that investigators are asking.
And Rory, in New Orleans, the usual barriers were not in place due to ongoing repairs. But considering the patrol cars in their place didn't serve as a deterrent, you wonder if police are re-examining security protocols.
Well, they'd have to. And, look, so the bollards that they put in place, they didn't work because the beads would get stuck in them, is what the mayor said yesterday. Wow. So they were replacing them using some federal money because they're hosting the upcoming Super Bowl. So they get federal money for security upgrades. That included new bollards that were being installed and were supposed to be ready in time for the Super Bowl. The police superintendent said they had a vehicle parked there instead, but they just drove around it. So, but the question is, they're just going to be in the same spot, then you could still drive around them since they're not on the sidewalk. So they might have to be rethinking a lot of this.
Our thanks to national correspondent Rory O'Neill. We will continue to bring you the absolute latest on the terror attacks on New Orleans and Las Vegas. In fact, coming up, we hear from you as well. We're asking you on the Talkback feature on the free iHeartRadio app, your thoughts, and are you concerned about a new wave of terror in the United States? Charity McCurdy with all the big stories coming at you at the bottom of the hour. WOAI News Time, 8:25.
8:30 is our time. San Antonio's first news. Good Thursday morning. I'm Charity McCurdy. Among our top stories, a potential link between the New Orleans terror attack and the Vegas Cybertruck explosion. First, traffic and weather together every 10 minutes and mornings. Your Thursday forecast, mostly cloudy, a high near 65, tonight's low near 50, right now 53 degrees. Plenty of speculation about the attack on the New Orleans New Year's Eve celebrations, with many beginning to blame possible security failures and potential accomplices who planted explosives around the site. Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrill says